The Switch is over 8 years old as of this point, and Nintendo's next generation console is right around the corner. Even in 2025 though, the Nintendo Switch is still far and away my most used console, which leaves me pondering the question, is it even worth buying in 2025? There's a few different SKUs and price points to go over first if you're actually interested in buying a Switch. There's the basic Nintendo Switch, which is the original model, which is $300 new, and used you're going to be looking at $200 for a console that actually includes a few games. Of course, if you buy a used one on eBay that doesn't have games, it's going to be quite a bit cheaper, probably closer to $120 to $150. The Switch Lite, if you buy it new, is $200. If you buy it used, it's going to be just over $100, closer to like $110. And then there's the Nintendo Switch OLED, which if you buy that new, it's going to be $350. If you buy it used, you're looking at around $250 with maybe a game thrown in. I would say if you're buying a new Nintendo Switch console, either get a Lite or an OLED. There's really no case for the original. The Switch is a very underpowered console, so don't expect this thing to run many third-party games well. In fact, most third-party games at this point don't even get a Switch version because the console is simply too weak. Do you think Assassin's Creed Shadows on day one is coming to the OG Switch? Or Doom the Dark Ages is coming to the OG Switch? It is not. Those games are simply not coming. The Switch is not going to be able to run them. We're so close to the Switch 2, it is kind of difficult for me to recommend someone to pick up a Switch 1, and I think that's the best way to put it. The Switch 2 is backwards compatible, and you can play all the Switch games. So if you just wait and pick up the brand new console, you aren't missing out on any of the Switch games. That's the beauty of it. I'm not going to really sugarcoat this or make a million excuses. At this point, it is a much better idea to wait for the Switch 2 and buy that. It will last and be supported by Nintendo and third parties for so much longer. It just makes far more sense to wait. But if you don't care and you just want to buy a Switch, since they're pretty cheap at this point, I can't stop you. But I will give some suggestions for you. Only buy a Switch Lite if you're 1,000,000% confident you will never even consider wanting to play on a TV or a monitor. When it comes to the original Switch versus the Switch OLED, I would recommend the OLED if you're buying brand new, but I would recommend the original model if you're buying it used. The internal's the exact same, and I see far better bundle deals with the original Switch than I do with the OLED. The main benefits of the OLED are a much nicer screen, better kickstand, and more storage. I personally have the Splatoon 3 OLED, and I love it, but if you plan on buying a used Switch to primarily use in docked mode, I'm always going to suggest the original model bundled with some games. Speaking of games, which games should you buy? My favorite part of the Switch is its fantastic game library, as it has so much to offer. You won't be playing much other than Nintendo games though, as they're really the only ones that work well, and to be honest, they're likely what you're buying the Switch for in the first place. Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are both fantastic open world games. I know you've already heard about them a million times, but they really are breathtaking. I love both those games so much. Mario Odyssey might just be the best feeling platforming I've ever experienced in my life. Although my personal Mario game of choice on the Switch is 3D World plus Bowser's Fury for the incredible multiplayer and including an entire open world inside of Bowser's Fury. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is great. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is awesome, and I also personally enjoyed Kirby Star Allies a bunch. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door was such a surprise to me, as I never played the original, but this game slapped, especially since I don't normally get into RPGs other than Pokemon. Speaking of Pokemon, Legends Arceus is one of the best games on the console, and I could honestly just play it forever. It is so much fun, so much to do in the game, just infinitely playable. Pokemon Sword and Shield are my personal favorite Pokemon games ever made, and I can appreciate everything they brought to the franchise. The new Gen 8 Pokemon were so dang cool. I personally love Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but I wouldn't recommend them to everyone, as they got a ton of backlash and are objectively pretty poorly made games. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are great though, and Scarlet and Violet are maybe worth a shot. I don't know, man, they have so many issues that make them hard to recommend. Despite the fact that the core Pokemon games are really solid and incredibly fun, they were just presented to us so horribly. Pikmin 4 is really fun from what I've played, and if you're into cozier and relaxed games, I would definitely recommend Animal Crossing New Horizons. Personally, it wasn't really for me, but you know, if you're into that type of game, I'm sure you'll love it. So many people do. If you're into over-the-top action games, I would definitely recommend Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors. These are legitimately some of my favorite games on the Switch. Just so fun and so much content packed into them. I'd have fun at these games for hours on end. Also Splatoon. Splatoon 2 is my personal favorite, and it is now much cheaper than the average Switch game, but Splatoon 3 has far more active servers, and is the one I recommend for newcomers to the franchise. The last game I'm going to mention is Smash Ultimate. This is one of the best games ever made and never fails to create a good time. This is truly the ultimate gaming crossover. There are a bunch more games that I also really enjoy, but I didn't mention here for one reason or another. I mainly mentioned all the big, new, awesome Nintendo first-party, amazing Switch games. But of course, there's a ton more that I could recommend that I just didn't want to indulge in right now. There's also a bunch that I haven't played or personally didn't enjoy too much, so I didn't feel comfortable giving my input on them. Stuff like Xenoblade and Metroid, I can really respect, but they weren't personally for me, so I'm not going to sit here and recommend them to you since I didn't really like them that much, so I don't really have that much praise to say for them as I didn't really understand the games. If you would like to suggest any that I missed though, please leave a comment down below letting everyone know what your favorite Switch games are, and I'd also be really interested in seeing. All you should really play on your Switch are Nintendo games. The console is too old and too underpowered to be worth purchasing this close to the Nintendo Switch 2. However, if you just want a portable, handheld, and home console hybrid that will play so many of my favorite games and some of the objectively best games ever made right now, then the Switch is going to be a great option. There's so many games on this console, and I really cannot stress enough how fantastic the library is. There is the Nintendo Switch tax, which is sort of this theoretical tax that Nintendo places on everything Switch, because every single game that comes out seems to be not worth the price. All the accessories are crazy expensive. You know, Joy-Cons are $80, the Pro Controller is $70. Every game, even like basic ports of games that used to be $50 are now $60. Yeah, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, I think we're all looking at you. So yeah, there are a few cons here, but this is really a phenomenal console that has a bunch of different options. There's the Lite, there's the OLED, there's the OG model, there's the red box model. There's a bunch of different SKUs. There's so many different special editions of this thing at this point. There's so much to offer here, and it does have some of the best games ever made. My two favorite games of all time are Splatoon 2 and Breath of the Wild, and guess what? They're both on this console. If you're into platforming games, if you like stuff like Astro Bot or Crash Bandicoot or Spyro, you're getting Mario on the Switch, and the Mario games are crazy. There's 6 3D Mario games that you can play on the Nintendo Switch. You got Mario Odyssey, 3D World, Bowser's Fury, 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, all on this console. It is really phenomenal. There's so much here. Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, Mario, Pikmin, there's a bunch. There's even Fire Emblem, which I really didn't mention that much in this video. There's a lot of games here. The console works great. It is awesome to be able to play all these on the go whenever you want. It's phenomenal. I love the Switch, but it is just debatable how worth it is this close to the Switch 2, especially when the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible. I'll leave that decision up to you guys, although I'd personally say just hold out and get a Switch 2. Thank you all for watching though, and let me know what you think of the Nintendo Switch, and if you have any questions, be sure to comment that down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.